Phew, that was a long introduction. Thank you. Oh, no wonder I'm tired. Um, my name is Keido Troy Fernandez. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Muy buenas tardes a todos, as we say in Espanol. Welcome to this evening's talk entitled, Life Always Gives to Life. There is nothing to fear. Before I go too far afield, I want to offer very sincere appreciation to Roshi Joan, my teacher and friend, for the invitation, encouragement, and support these many years to show up in this way. Your presence here honors us, as we say in Vulcan. Yeah. Also, deep gratitude and respect to our dear Wendy Johnson, our very own resident Earth Mama here at Upaya by way of the Bay Area. She could not be with us this evening in person as her daughter just gave birth to a beautiful new little sapling called Rose Catherine. Wendy is indeed at the heart and roots of planting life here at Upaya for so many years. Wendy, your spirit is in this dirt, the seeds and the way. We know you're with us in spirit. I also want to take an opportunity to thank my parents, Jake and Vanji, my grandparents, my partner Fushin, and so many unnamed teachers who make it possible for me to be here with you to share in this way. También le damos gracias a la vida que nos ha dado tanto. We also give thanks to life, which has given us so much. It gives us everything, really. I think really it's always fitting, even necessary, dare I say, with simple and sincere gratitude to begin all that we do. All the traditions and cultures of the world began an endeavor with fundamental gratitude, even sacrifice. We need and we want, but we maybe should consider, what can we give? What can we give? What do we bring? When sharing my plans to do this and that, I was excited. Very often I would go to my grandmother and say, I'm doing this and the other one, and she would look at me kind of like, okay. And she'd point upwards and said, primero aquel. Knowing that, first him or it, right? All the energies that we practice with. Knowing we can't go very far in any meaningful way lest we honor where we come from. Numberless beings give their lives and labors that we may eat. 72 labors bring us the food. We should know how it comes to us and consider whether our practice merits it. Yes, we are deserving, but let's not forget to say thank you, right? Yeah, it's important to say thank you. For many years now, I've called upon the poetic folk wisdom or teaching of what we call dichos, or sayings. Many of them passed down to me by my grandmother, who I lovingly called Grandma Honey. Her name was Hipólita, but Honey because my grandparents had that endearment with each other, honey this, honey that, and as a child, I thought that was her name. So Grandma Honey is with us, and she was just loved to pass her love and her wisdom. And from my very earliest memories, I can still recall her imparting her wisdom as she ferried my cousin and my cousins and my brother and I up and down the road from Truchas to Chimayón. Here's a beginner koan or dicho, if you will. Árbol que crece torcido nunca su rama endereza. A tree whose branches grow crooked can never be straightened once they grow crooked. So be straight, be good, right? Be upright. She also, as we got a little bit older and wanted to cavort with the kids in the neighborhood, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are. Mind where you spread your energy, how who you keep near to you. Okay, and I can't help it. One more. This one came in later years because it's more complicated and it's so elegant in Spanish. Al silencio y la paciencia siempre debes de acudir si quieres salir de cualquier contingencia. So it rhymes beautifully and it means keep patience and silence close if you wish to get out of any jam or contingency. Yeah, wise, right? And you know, when my grandmother gave these dichos, there was no grand gesture or preamble. Always she approached it with a kind of considered silence. And only when appropriate would she place that dicho before you. She never claimed the knowledge as her own. Always, tu Domínguez decía, or mi papá decía, your great grandmother Domínguez or your grandfather so and so would say. No need to take credit. It was enough that she had planted a seed of wisdom, a consejo, as she called it, advice. Thank you, Grandma. So I've heard it said, we say here in Buddhist circles. Let us not forget our teachers. They are all around. Life gives freely to life. It is not jealous. No trade wars, borders, or ideologies. It just gives of itself. I'm also grateful for the chance to be with you in this great Taizando, great mountain hall this evening. Recalling that at this time last year, I could not be with you due to a debilitating and frankly, a very scary illness. I am heartened too by the reminder that as we gather to consider how life gives to life, that the old original part of this very building for many years has been called querencia. I'm not sure how it got that name, Roshi. Maybe you called it that. Yeah. Querencia, a really wonderful concept, an almost untranslatable word in Spanish. You may know that querencia is rooted in the verb querer, but it also means to desire and to love, and which all at once evokes a kind of longing or instinct to return to a favorite or preferred place, the place where we feel safe, happy, and strong. Interestingly, querencia also refers to the place where the bull takes his stand in the bullfighting ring. Life takes a stand. It's courageous. Ultimately, querencia evokes a kind of return to the place that loved us into being. As we usher in this weekend's Planting Life program, I invite you just for a moment to call to mind your querencia. Where is this place for you? What makes it possible for you to be here? Take a moment. Call it to your heart and mind. Last year's talk, which I drafted at the end of April, took its inspiration from an incredible trip we took to Japan earlier that month. As I mentioned again, unfortunately, I couldn't give it because I had been quite fatigued, but no matter, Natalie Goldberg, who heard of my failing health, told me, don't worry, you give it next year. Just rest now. Wendy, you go do it. Don't bother Troy. You go do that talk. And he'll take it now next year. Thank you, Natalie. We're here this next year. I thought, well, maybe there's wisdom in it. Maybe like a field that lays fallow, maybe it's my time. Life can take a break, right? We can take a break. That's for you, Roshi. Can take a break. We don't have to work so hard, right? But then to my shock, horror, as I was getting ready for this year's Planting Life, I discovered that my talk was nowhere to be found on the computer. Even Noah's mighty techno skills could not recoup it. After I recovered sufficiently from my despair, the words of my dear Guatemalan shaman friend Gigi came into view. Por algo será. For some reason, it is. For some reason, it is. Even when flames amid her altar had caught everything on it on fire and burnt it to the ground, and I gasped in horror, she said, Por algo será. Right? Even when it's burning down, falling apart, or it's lost in the ether, there's a reason. It's going to be okay. Right? In preparation to give that talk of last year, Fusion and I decided to take a walk up the Atalaya Trail. I had never been there before, even though I've lived here my whole life. I had never, I'd been up Picacho and other places, but not Atalaya. Atalaya, you may know, means tower in Spanish. So maybe taking the view. I did not feel at all well that day. And in fact, I was feeling even sicker, kind of like with each passing step. And I tried to tell myself that I was showing up. Life shows up, right? Just keep moving, Troy. There's Dharma in it somewhere, I thought, irritated though I was. Fusion and I were at times breathless as we bushwhacked our way up parts of the mountain, having lost the trail. I could not help but half smile even amid my discomfort. Is this what they mean by roll everything into your practice? I began to concentrate and consider on what felt essential about losing the path and then finding it again. Struggle and determination. My mind floated to Katie Arnold, who gave a talk in this very hall about this time last year. She had run up the Atalaya Trail every day for a solid year, come rain or come shine. Her trail blazing example gave way to a feeling like a burning in the middle of my chest. So present for me was the notion of ancestors. Many of you will know how proud I am of my own ancestry, given hundreds of years of courageous men and women that have lived by and for the land, and maybe even millennia if we take into account my Tewa roots. But there it was, very palpable, the ancestors. How did they do it? As I looked out from Atalaya Hill on the desolate, dry landscape, so inhospitable at times, I thought to myself, life shows up no matter what. As I made my way up the mountain, nearing the summit, the thought of ancestors transported me to the trip we had recently taken to Japan with Roshi Joan, many fellow priests, Dharma friends, and postulants. While there, we were warmly greeted by so many gracious abbots, Zen priests, and countless friendships that have been cultivated by Roshi and Kaz-sensei over decades of time. A kind of passing of the torch, I think it was, Roshi, that you wanted so much for us to meet these people and to understand our Zen roots and to keep that beautiful connection going. I had been to Japan before, at least one time, but again, I was struck immediately by the immensity of the temples, centuries old, exquisitely manicured gardens and temple grounds, ordered yet easeful beauty everywhere. But what moved me, even amid feeling quite ill at that time, was the palpable sense of quiet, patient, and steady devotion. Dare I say love in those ancient lands. I was struck too by the fact that over the centuries, many of these incredible places of practice had been destroyed by lightning, war, decay. Undaunted, the ancestors have built and rebuilt them again and again. Life is persistent. There too, amid the majesty of so many incredible landscapes and buildings, was also the reminder of what the Japanese call aware, or so-called slender, silent sadness. The sort of bitter-sweet sensation you get when you behold perhaps the profusion of cherry blossoms on the avenue of cherry trees, all the while being aware of the fleeting nature of life as you watch the blossoms scatter in the spring breeze. Life is precious and, in a way, fleeting. It was sobering, if not sad, to learn that many of the young priests in Japan are in formation to take over dwindling family temples passed down father to son. The vast majority devoted to what might be considered the funeral industry or business, seemingly a more practical function of tradition rather than the Dharma practice we have come to know and enjoy here at Upaya. During one of our visits, we had a wonderful and rare opportunity to visit and dialogue with the charismatic chief abbot of Engakuji Temple in Kamakura, Yokota Roshi, and various of his novice priests and postulants. We engaged in spirited and open exchange on a variety of topics, among them the evolution of Zen. Questions and concerns about its future seemed to permeate the room as we enjoyed our bento box lunch. At one point, we began to discuss the evolution of Zen in America, which gave way to waxing about deep Zen roots in Japan and its preservation and dissemination by ancestors, the likes of D.T. Suzuki, whose grave, by the way, was just across the way. It was wonderful to walk with our guides there who showed us, all the ancestry there in the graveyard. This person promoted DT, this person was married to DT, and so on. Shorinu Suzuki, Maizumi, and Bernie Glassman, and others. As I sat amid the spirited conversation, I could not help but recall the dedication of this new querencia building we are now sitting in, just a few months prior. I told Yokota Roshi of a very touching exchange we had with Roxanne Swentzell, who you may know and we love, who will be helping us celebrate this year's Planting Life. And I told of this story that as we were beginning the ceremony to inaugurate this building, we presented her with beautiful ears of corn that we had grown out in our own Three Sisters garden. She smiled and took the corn ears in her hand, put them to her cheek like a loving old lost family member, smelt them and kissed them, and then remarked that perhaps the corn seeds would not be as happy in the drier, harsher soil in the garden near the Santa Clara Pueblo, adding that the seeds themselves change in relationship to the land where they're planted. The seeds themselves change in relationship to the place they are planted. Of course they do. Life learns from life. I shared this observation with Yokota Roshi, posing that in a similar way, the seeds of Zen had perhaps fundamentally changed as they have grown out in the West. Yokota Roshi deliberated and then in his very lively, animated manner said, "Oh, perhaps the seeds can return to Japan anew. Perhaps the seeds can return to Japan anew." This man was incredible. He was undaunted by any question you gave him. There was just, deep, deep practice. He seemed not to fret in any way. And one of his translators that we were tickled to learn when he is doing Dokusan, he had this beautiful old hut with a very ancient and much worn bowing mat where the students and postulates would come to do interview or Dokusan with him. And as you may know in Dokusan, the teacher will either ring for you or ring you away. This teacher, Yokota Roshi, just by the sound of the footsteps coming down the path, could tell if his students were really ready to receive his wisdom or not, sometimes ringing before they even got to the mat. Yeah, quite an incredible person. The seeds of Dharma and life itself are not static. They move, they change and adapt. More and more, it occurs to me that ancestors, the ancient Buddhist ones, whether in Japan or name the place, the ones in our personal family or lineage, are not out there somewhere relegated to the past. They are here, always here, in you and me. The potent legacy and potentiality of our ancestors, changed or not, resides in us. Consider, how will you honor and grow it? How will you honor and grow it? A few years ago, I had a wonderful awakening moment in my father's apple orchard in preparation, yet again, for one of these talks. And yet again, interestingly, I was just recalling, I was not feeling up to it. I didn't really want to be in the orchard. It was early. It was going to be a lot of work. I didn't want to be there. But, I had this like incredible awakening as my father described how the water should flow down the ditch and into the orchard. It was unexpected, in a way, an accident of practice, if you will. Roshi likes to quote, practice, what is it? Practice, enlightenment is an accident and practice makes you accident prone. Yeah, right. Yeah, it was kind of just like that. And since that experience in the orchard a few years back, I can't seem to enter that orchard now without the subtle wish to have another shining moment. Kind of greedy, I want more. And of course, that's not the way it works, right? It reminds me of the book, what is it called? Ecstasy and Then the Laundry, kind of a thing. Mostly the orchard is a lot of work. Yearly pruning, ongoing struggles to get water amidst, endless years of drought, clearing of the ditch. We water those trees and tend to them, but some years there's no fruit. We tend them anyway. We tend them anyway. The other day, my father called upon me, yet again to help in this famed orchard, to help change the oil in the tractor and to attach the implement needed to clear new irrigation pathways for the water to flow in the orchard. My father admonished me, as he is given to do these days, saying, you need to learn how to do this. I'm not going to be here forever. And I don't take offense, but mostly I feel a little melancholy as I think one day my father will not be here. And just then, as I made my way into the orchard following behind him, I watched him expertly lower the implement to the ground, making beautiful waterways for the upcoming irrigation. He's done it probably hundreds of times. Nothing special. The ordinary stuff of every day. Yet, it's everything. Without it, there are no trees, no apples, no me. My eyes watered, and I was grateful to my father, my grandfather, and the chance to see it and to consider with you now how we might practice with it. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We do have a chance to hear it if we're listening. The persistence of my father and the many antepasados before him reminded me too of our visit to Otsu, the main hall in Ryakuji Temple on Mount Hiezan. The temple is a national treasure whose main hall, called Kompon Chodo, is covered in a giant kind of exoskeleton, which shields the temple while restorers and experts use traditional craftsmanship methods and painstakingly repair the temple down to its bamboo nails, joinery, and painting. I mean, just every possible detail that you could imagine. The delicate care and respect of tradition was inspiring on its own. But what struck me so deeply amid the dimly lit, incense smoke encrusted pillars, which had more the feel of a primordial cave than of a temple, was the telling by our guide that the light in its inner sanctuary just beyond had come from a flame that had been tended and kept burning for over 1,000 years. I have since come to learn that there was a sister flame at a nearby temple that when one extinguished, the other one was, planted or taking care of it, and vice versa. Even in the midst of wars and various kinds of destruction, this amazing act of devotion has been sustained. How could they have done it? It seems to me that the light in that temple continued to burn even now because of a kind of courage, a steadfast resolve rooted in love, warm hand to warm hand, like my father's teaching in the orchard and my grandfather's before him. This year, another glimmer of light shone in what felt like a dark place for me just days ago over a visit with our dear friends Carol Anthony and Abigail. And I was speaking of this year's Planting Life program, and of course had to share about the calamity of my lost talk, to which Abigail promptly inquired, had I read the work of Mark Nepo? I had not. But in an instant, I sensed that there had been providence, maybe even assistance, in having lost the old talk to the techno-black hole. Obstacles are auspicious, we say in Zen. Life finds a way. Por algo será. Hear from Mark Nepo, and thank you, Evers. The courage of the seed. All the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see. On the cushion, in the orchard, out there in what feels like the devastation of our time, the courage of seeds. Nepo goes on. All around us, everything small and buried surrenders to a process that none can see. And this innate surrender allows everything edible, fragrant to break ground into the life of light that we call spring. In nature, we are quietly given countless models of how to give ourselves over to what appears dark and hopeless, but which ultimately is an awakening that is beyond all imagining. This moving through the dark into blossom is the threshold of God, what Roshi Joan calls the fruitful darkness. Hopefully you've read her book on that by that title. It's one of my favorites. And yet again, I'm taken back to the Mahasakaka Sutra, which tells us that the young Buddha himself, after 6 years of austere practice, asked himself, could there be another path to enlightenment, coming out of his own, perhaps, fruitful darkness? It is said that as he sat more deeply with this question, he arrived at a memory of a spring day when he was just about the age of 6. He recalled his father taking him to the spring plowing festival, where rich and poor came together to plow the earth in the annual ritual marking at the beginning of spring planting season. Siddhartha spontaneously poised himself in a position of meditation. He sat under a sweet-smelling apple tree, observing the scene unfolding in front of him, open, alert, and unfettered in the way that sometimes young people give to things. In those moments of not wanting, not fearing anything, he was aware of the earth's opening in wave-like furrows, noticing the heat shimmering up from the freshly opened dirt. He was aware of the shining and the sweating of faces, straining bodies of the men and oxen. He noticed the flash and sparkling sunlight coming off the bronze harnesses, the dark horns of the oxen. He felt the plodding rhythm of the oxen's hooves, the ringing sound of cowbells. He also could clearly hear the beautiful song of the birds as they dove, the shrill of them as they devoured insects, grubs, and worms, the sight of broken bodies of the mice that lay on the upturned soil. All this laboring, devouring, struggling, and dying, endlessly going on along the gaiety and joy and beauty of that spring festival day. All these entered into young Siddhartha's mind and heart, open-heartedly taking in the experience of the scene unfolding before him. In his mind, finding no inner conflict, no tension, nothing to add, nothing to take away, experiencing bright, sweet pleasure that was not born out of desire or clinging to anything. It is said that this memory led young Siddhartha to be filled with an energy and assuredness that this was a footstep on the path of liberation. This helped lead to a deepened resolve to sit quietly until he could reach full and complete freedom. Nepo poses that a seed buried in the earth cannot imagine what it will become, but neither can a heart packed with hurt imagine itself loved or at peace. The courage of the seed is that once cracking, it cracks all the way. Courage, as I often tell my clients, it does not mean we have no fear. It means that even when fear is present, we show up to do what must be done. So often it feels like we don't know what the heck to do, but something inside of us does. And right amid this struggle to be courageous, I am reminded, if not outraged, and deeply saddened on a daily basis and sometimes hourly by what feels like the deep, dark, and troubling time we live in. Namely, the devastation of wars, our imperiled environment, the greed, the hatred, and the delusion, mountains of untold suffering. But the Buddha himself found no separation, deeply aware that right there with the joy and beauty exists struggling, suffering, and dying. He gave us a brilliant clue as he recalled taking his seat under the sweet-smelling apple tree. He took note of the rhythm of things, indeed the truth and unity of all things. Nepo puts it this way: there is a quiet hope that is embedded in our nature. Even as we begin, is our gift already unfolded. Embedded in the seed is the blossom. Embedded in the womb is the child fully grown. Embedded in the impulse to care is the peace of love realized. Embedded in the edge of risk and fear is the authenticity that makes life worth living. Nepo, like the Buddha, poses that there is very little difference between burying and planting. Can we put dead things to rest so that a new life can grow? Remembering that what we put to rest, whether it be a loved one, a dream, a false way of seeing, becomes the fertilizer of life about to form. Dear friends, may we continue to honor the path of our ancestors, taking courage in the potential of every seed, our own cracking, assured that right there within darkness there is light. I leave you with a poem from Anna Akhmatova. Everything is plundered, betrayed, sold. Death's great black wing scrapes the air. Misery gnaws to the bone. Why then do we not despair? By day from the surrounding woods, cherries blow summer into town. At night, the deep transparent skies glitter with new galaxies. And the miraculous comes so close to the ruined, dirty houses. Something not known to anyone at all, but wild in our breast for centuries. Do not be afraid. Life always gives to life.